What's up, Roxanne?
What's up?
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
So why don't you introduce yourself, 21 Pathways, and let everyone know what your sobriety date is.
My name is Roxanne, and my sobriety date is April 2nd, 2023.
And what was your drug of choice?
I would say heroin, fentanyl, and a sprinkle of meth, for sure.
Yeah, okay. What about alcohol? Did alcohol have a big part?
Alcohol had a strange part. I would not say that it had a part in a sense where from a very young age it was something I didn't like, and I drank when I was younger for sure, but it was something that I didn't want to be, was an alcoholic. So I just kind of replaced being an alcoholic with a drug addict.
Do you remember the first time you ever popped a pill?
Yes, I do.
What was that like?
It was a feeling of, many say, a warm hug. It felt like, oh, this is my thing. This is what is going to make me feel better when I can't make myself feel better.
Do you remember how young you were when you popped that first pill?
19.
19. And it was, at that point it was on, right?
It was on. It was a slow burn, but yes.
So you're popping pills before you know it. I'm willing to bet it was the Norcos or Vicodins that led to Oxycontin. Were you one of those?
Norcos. That led to Roxy sets.
Roxy's.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the Roxy's. And then tell us about the first time you ever hit a Roxy. Did you crush it?
I snorted it like a quarter of a pill.
Okay.
And it was just more of a quicker, intense Norco high. And it was better.
Did you get sick?
I didn't, because I had already had a little bit of a tolerance for opiates built up.
Right.
But it definitely, eventually, yeah, as I increased my tolerance.
So you're snorting Roxy's now. So I remember when I started snorting Oxy, I had to do it whenever I worked. I became that functioning addict. Did you have to have Roxy's pills to overcome any type of social anxiety? I
had to have
conversations with people.
I had to have
work
it to live.
Yeah.
To function.
To function.
But it's funny because before I got into Roxy's, I had gotten my wisdom teeth pulled, and I had gotten a prescription for Vicodin, and then I conveniently got a refill on that prescription.
How convenient.
Convenient. And I was taking them so much that when I had stopped taking them, I was getting the restless leg feeling, but had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
And just thinking, gosh, why do I feel like I'm tensing up, what's going on, but just completely clueless and naive to what was actually developing.
So is it safe to say, I know you have a sponsor and you work the steps, but looking back and reflecting, is it safe to say that you were powerless?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Deep into it.
Deep.
And that your life was, what they say, unmanageable.
Yes.
Complete chaos.
Complete.
Without getting into a whole lot of stories, maybe a real quick 10, 15 second, just give us a small clip of what that chaos was like. It
turned into living in 40-foot storage containers. It turned into being homeless in my car. It turned into losing every job I had.
Criminal activity?
A lot of criminal activity, a lot of stealing, a lot of fraudulent activity.
Lost relationships?
A lot of lost relationships.
Okay.
Any relationship I did have was built around drugs.
And then all of that came to an end because you ended up where? You ended up, was it Santa Barbara County?
Santa Barbara County Jail. And
without getting into too much detail, so you are there, but I'm just from talking to you, you were strung out. You were deep into your addiction. Tell us what it was like to detox in jail.
I had ended up in Santa Barbara County Jail a few times. I would say that the last time that I ended up there, it definitely was after probably 7 years of heroin use. And I had gone boosting that day, which was stealing. And I remember it was 9:30 at night. I had just stolen a bunch of stuff from stores.
Did you have a fence? Did you have someone you could take it to?
Yeah.
The hook, yeah?
Yes, my plug. But I was getting in the car, and we had realized that the lights in the car weren't on. They weren't going on. And at this time, I had 9 bench warrants out for my arrest, and I had been on the run for 3 years. And I remember looking at my drug dealer at the time, who I was also living with, and saying, please don't drive. Well, let's get an Uber. Let's call one of your family members. Please don't drive. I can't go to jail. And him saying, no, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Good.
And I will remember I had just taken a hit of meth. I didn't even get to get high or get well again. But we were starting to drive back to the house. And after 2 minutes of driving, you hear the cops pull us over.
Of course.
So they pull us over. It was a newer cop. I thought that we were going to get out of the situation, but then when he ran my name, he called a second officer to the scene who was more of a veteran officer, and he comes up to my window and he's like, the judge wants to see you, you're coming in. And somehow he had managed to hide the drugs, but I remember looking at my drug dealer and him being like, don't worry, I'll bail you out, don't worry. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, totally. And so I get taken in to Santa Barbara County Jail. I'm sitting in the holding cell before they house you. And I'm thinking to myself, I was never scared to go to jail for any kind of reason other than the fact that in that moment I had to fully accept I was about to kick cold turkey from every drug I was on. That
was my biggest fear, was having to detox in jail.
Yeah.
On that cold concrete, just gross. The whole situation. Yeah. Nothing to help you out with, right?
Nope.
So now you are locked up, and now you're going to go through it. Now you're going to detox and explain, just if you could remember clearly, just explain real quick what how scared, how frightened you were that knowing it's coming.
It was a mixture of fear, but also weirdly acceptance, because I was the type of addict where there was absolutely nothing that was going to get me to stop using unless I was behind bars. And then once I'm behind those bars, it's a realization of I have no family member that's bailing me out. At one point in time, my dad had blocked the jail calls. There was no one. There was no help coming. There was nothing coming to see.
So it was full on surrender.
Surrender, 100%. So I had to just accept in that moment that I was about to be going through it for weeks.
When you surrendered, we in 21 Pathways, we always say how surrender leads to victory. This victory, I mean, now we could say it's coming to an end, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a relief maybe that it's coming to an end. So you're detoxing in jail. You get through it, obviously. You got through it. Did you meet anyone there? Were you getting half the Jolly Rancher? Did you, was anybody kind of just taking care of you or anything? Did you?
No, it was, every time I've ever kicked in jail, the only thing that would get me through was the fact that I could just be in the shower, a hot shower the entire time. The last time that I got locked up, it was still under COVID restrictions. So I was in a 2-person cell for 23 hours out of a day, could leave 1 hour. And it was probably the worst kick I've ever had in jail. But also, there was nobody there to help me. I actually flew under the radar. I was supposed to have assistance, but they never came to check up on me because I was registered as a heroin addict in the jail system.
Right.
So, the only thing I got was maybe a Gatorade every couple hours and my vitals checked. But, you meet people in jail, definitely. But I think that the last time I went to jail, it was really an experience of what has my life come to?
Right.
How did I get here?
So you get out, right? You make a phone call. To an ex-boyfriend, and he asks you, do you want help? And you say yes.
Yes.
And without getting into too many details, where did you end up getting that help?
I got that help from My Time Recovery.
And what is My Time Recovery?
It is a treatment program in Fresno, California.
And so you get here, and he kind of knew some people that worked over there. long story short, you end up at a great facility.
A great facility on a scholarship.
And
'cause I
so
did
you're
not
getting
have
help,
health
right?
insurance.
And what was that like to walk into that place? Was it a sense of relief?
It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. I was court ordered for 7 months to be in a drug and alcohol program. So I didn't know what to expect. Also, I had been using drugs for 8 to 9 years at this point that I didn't know what to expect. It felt like a first day of school almost. Like, do I bring a backpack? Do I put like books in a bag? Should I be writing notes on everything they're teaching me? And I walk in the first day and it's this nice facility. It's all of these people that are struggling with the same kind of struggles.
Yeah.
And it felt like relief.
So you get there.
Like there was light at the end of the tunnel.
So you're seeing some hope.
Yes.
You get to My Time, and let's talk about some of the relationships you built at My Time.
Yes. I through My Time, I had met my best friend in my life, my sister. I have met, but Danielle aside, I have also made friendships that I have to this day that I cherish.
So some of the people you met over there, you're still friends to this day, right?
Yes.
16 months later. And what about the staff, the counselors? Talk about how great they are.
They're amazing. You walk into a place like this and there's people there. They might not be addicts like you. Some are, some aren't. But they truly care about the job that they're doing. They care about your well-being. And all they truly want is to see you leave this program being able to go about life to the best of your ability with the skills that they want to teach you.
What are 2 to 3 things that you've learned from My Time?
From My Time, I would say responsibility again. I would say community. And I would say forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Those are great. Okay, so you're at My Time. You're learning how to move on with your life. Things are going great, and you decide you're going to coin out, right? Coin out, and you were there for 6 months, 9 months?
Around 7 months is what I was court ordered to, so I had to complete 7 months.
Okay, so let's talk about you coining out.
Yes.
And this is a picture of your best friend, and you guys are. This is your best friend Danielle that you met at My Time.
Yes.
And you guys have this brilliant idea.
Yeah.
This brilliant idea that you guys are going to move out.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about that.
So we had both lived in sober living together and separately. We were inseparable. We decided we were ready to
Were you guys in sober living together?
We were at one point, yes.
Okay.
Then they separated us because they said we were too codependent.
Yeah, you guys are lunatics. But okay, so then you guys are, but you decide, keep going, you decide to move out.
We decide that we're going to get our own place, that it's time that we are ready to move out of sober living. We're ready to leave the accountability that sober living makes you have, which is like breathalyzing every night, UAing when they want you to, going to meetings a certain amount of times just a week to be able to be in the house. We were ready to, we could do this on our own. Let's get our own place. We both have jobs. We're making money. Let's do this. So we got our own apartment, and it was going okay.
It was going good, right?
For a portion of time.
Okay, so let's back up just a little bit. You said you guys were going to meetings. Let's talk about some of the meetings that you were going to.
Yes.
What were some of your top meetings here in Fresno that you really enjoyed?
I went to HA every Sunday night.
And explain to everyone what HA is.
HA is Heroin Anonymous, and it was an amazing meeting. I got a service commitment with Danielle to make coffee there every Sunday.
Okay.
I went to.
So you found this community at HA.
Yes.
You're learning service.
Yes.
And you're learning a little bit more about love, forgiveness, honesty, acceptance. Stuff
yes.
Like that. Okay.
100%.
And then was HA the only meeting that you were going to?
No, not necessarily. It was definitely my home group meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also go to, certain AA meetings that I liked, like at Fresno Fellowship, North Park, Sierra Fellowship.
Did you have a sponsor at this time?
At the
I don't
time
remember.
of when I moved out, I did not.
You did
During
not.
those 11 months, I did have a sponsor at one
Okay,
point
so
or
when you
another.
were prior to you moving out, you
Yes.
did. Were you working the steps?
I was trying to work the steps. I got to step 2, and then the sponsor I had just didn't have the time to take me through the steps. So that made it harder to get through them. And at that point, I just said, well, you know what? I think I can do this on my own.
Famous line, right?
Yeah.
I can do this on my own.
I
So
got this.
I got this. So, okay, so we're going to meetings. You and Danielle decide that you guys are going to move out.
Yes.
You have this brilliant idea that you're going to move out. And you move out. At this point, you are working, correct?
Yes.
So are you working at the restaurant yet?
I was working at a yoga studio.
Okay. But
And
not the
then-
restaurant
but
yet.
Right when we moved out is right when I got hired to start training and opening this
So when
restaurant.
when you were living at the apartment, you weren't necessarily working at the restaurant yet, but you were working, and you guys decide like, okay, now at this point, did you find yourself slowly not going back to meetings?
Yes.
And starting to slowly distance yourself from the recovery community?
Yes.
And then at this point, you guys are pretty much just counting on each other to
Yes.
stay sober. And then now the fall comes around.
Yes.
Right? Fall comes around, and then all of a sudden now you guys have this brilliant idea that you're going to get high.
Yeah.
You're going to get high, and
There were some events that led up to this. but
right.
Yes.
So if you want to get into one or two of those events that led up to it, you can. But if not, explain what that was like when you guys decided that you're going to.
The events were basically along the lines of things that you shouldn't get yourself into necessarily in early sobriety, but if you do, you need to have the right coping skills and
Right.
ways to be able to, deal with potential loss
Okay.
of these things.
So you decide that you're going to use. Now, did you tell yourself, oh, we can just do it one time and everything will be cool?
Yeah, it was it was supposed to be like a one-time thing. And yes, somebody decided one night that my best friend decided one night that she wanted to get high. And I was with her and our other best friend, and we were like, I don't know if that's a great idea, but it was going to happen. And it's so funny because my addiction is the type of addiction where it's like, I will sit there and I'll say, no, we shouldn't do this. But then as soon as the sack arrives, I'm the first person with my paraphernalia ready to go and the first person getting high.
Right. So these are some pictures of you, it looks like, at your apartment, right? You're at your apartment, and you guys have decided to, now you guys are going to get lit. And
We are lit.
You are lit. So now that you guys are into it, how many times, was it about a month before you realized, okay, that it has taken over?
Yeah, so how it went was we got high on heroin one night, and we were like, let's never do this again. And then within 2 weeks, I was snorting lines of cocaine without any alcohol use, without any drug use, just cocaine. And I don't even really like cocaine, but that is, once you open one of those kind of doors,
It's on.
it's on. And then
Yeah.
before you knew it, I switched from heroin to fentanyl, and I was like, oh, I can do this like once a week. We'll be okay. And I don't know anybody that is able to do fentanyl once a week and be totally okay.
How much fentanyl were you guys going through?
I was doing those pressed M pills.
Yeah.
And it got, by the time from when I started to the end of the 2.5 months of my relapse, I had gotten up to about I'd say probably 10 pills a day.
Yeah. Do you remember that moment when you're like, I'm done. I'm hooked again. I'm hooked. I'm back. There's no stopping now.
Yeah, I think it was.
Because we try to fight it, right? We try to say, you know what? I'm not hooked yet.
It was about the first 3 days of using them. So what really led to the downfall of my relapse is when we first decided to get high that day, one of our best friends overdosed in our apartment.
Right.
I had to call 911. The police came. They Narcaned him. He lived. And then, like I had mentioned, 2 weeks later, I was doing cocaine. Well, 2 weeks later, he was sneaking around doing those pills still, which probably 3 weeks later led to him overdosing and passing away. So there was a large, Danielle and I felt like at fault. Like
weight on your shoulders.
Yeah.
The shame, the guilt,
100%.
all the above.
And also it was like this person was with me from the very first day I walked into my time.
Right.
Through any and everything, and they were gone. And it was hard to deal with. And at that point, it was just like, I'm going to
use to brush this under, to numb the pain.
Which is exactly what I did with any kind of traumatic event that was in my life. Was my go-to was I'm going to stay numb.
Yeah.
And that meant stay high.
Right. So now it's to the point where you and Danielle are abusing the drugs. You're abusing the fentanyl. You're using it every day. Now you guys are best friends. Explain to everyone how something like fentanyl or any drug can start to destroy that friendship.
Danielle and I's relationship is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I would say that it is filled with laughter. It's filled with fun. It's a beautiful friendship. It's a beautiful sisterhood. When we were using and we were relapsed and using together, we absolutely hated each other. It became so toxic. There was stealing. Like Danielle would steal from me.
Why?
Because I had drugs and she didn't.
Right. So she's trying to steal your drugs. You're stealing hers. You guys are lying to each other.
Lying. Stealing, not even speaking.
Yeah.
Like I would come home and she would be in her room with the door shut. That drug will suck your soul.
Yeah.
And take everything that you love from you.
And that's exactly what it did to you.
Yes.
Isn't it crazy how a drug like that can just destroy everything?
Absolutely
in seconds, right? Okay, so now you guys are fully relapsed. You're fully involved. You hate each other. And I think Danielle, she was the first to say she needs help, right?
Yes. Well, I think we both realized we needed help. Danielle's mom was coming down she had told her mom, hey, I relapsed, and her mom was coming down to check on her from Oregon to Fresno. And there was a point where we were like, we can detox ourselves. Let's try to do this. It didn't work, obviously.
Yeah,
not well.
Yeah.
It led to precipitated withdrawals for me, but it was horrible. But eventually, Danielle's family offered her help with like a small type of intervention, but they basically said, do you want help? It's here right now. You have to go right now.
And so she took the help. Your situation was a little bit different because you were working at a restaurant.
I was working
at a really cool restaurant, making a lot of good money. Yeah. And you were in the situation where I can't leave my job because I got bills I have to pay, right?
I think that it got to the point where I was terrified because I had rebuilt everything that I had at that point. But I also knew that if I continued down the path I was on again, I was going to lose the car, the job, the apartment. But I didn't exactly know what to do. I think that when you get into your addiction and you're so far gone, you feel just this overwhelming hopelessness. And that
which leads to more.
It leads to more. There's also the shame part of it.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to look back on because there was this large voice in my head that was saying, like, no one knows. You have to keep this a secret. No one knows. When in reality, everybody knew. I just couldn't come to terms with that. And I didn't know how to ask for help, but I knew I needed help.
When you were working at this restaurant, did you let everyone know about being an addict?
When I first started, yeah.
And how did that help you? Were people, because you work at a place where there's lots of alcohol. Yeah. It's open late hours.
Yeah.
People are always coming in and out ordering alcohol.
Yeah.
How were you able to cope with that?
Well, it was kind of strange because when I started my job, I was still sober, right? I started my job right before I relapsed. Then when I relapsed, everybody thought that I was still sober, even though I wasn't. It got to the point where eventually I think everybody knew that I wasn't sober. But I would say that I pretty much, I lied to my job. I said I was going to my dad's house. I needed a week off. And I
was going to a golf tournament. Yeah, I get
exactly.
it.
I said I was going to see my dad for a week and I needed time off. And when that time off request came around, what I really had done was I put myself in a 7-day detox. And when I got out, I made a phone call to one of my managers who I love very dearly. And I said, hi, I need to revisit the option of me having certain days off for meetings. And he said to me, well, Roxanne, I need to be fair with everybody. And I said, okay, here's the thing. I just spent 7 days in detox for being on fentanyl for the last 2.5 months. If you want me to be the best employee that I need to be, this is what I have to do for myself. And he said, and I quote, as long as you're in treatment and you're sober, I'll give you whatever you want.
How cool is that?
And I had to call the owner of my job. I had to call every manager I had at the time. And I had to tell everybody that I worked with, like, hey, I've been strung out smoking foils in the bathroom of this establishment. And
How hard was that to tell them that?
It was not easy. But like, it was.
But you swallowed your pride. This is that humility.
I had to.
This is pretty much step one, right?
Yes.
Admitting that we're powerless.
Yes.
And that we need, admit that our lives are unmanageable.
And what's crazy about it is I was so shameful and I was so prideful and I was so scared. But at the end of the day, these people were so supportive.
Awesome.
They were so proud and wanted to just help me succeed. And circling back to what you mentioned about the restaurant and alcohol and being around that kind of environment, I'm not saying that it's different for me whatsoever. I think that because I have a very strange relationship with alcohol. My mother was a really bad alcoholic. She was abusive, verbally, physically, all of the above. I watched my mom die pretty much from being an alcoholic. That I look at alcohol differently. Mm-hmm. I'm not triggered necessarily by alcohol or people drinking around me because of that weird thing I built from such a young age. I also think that it's never easy. I don't think it's easy being in recovery and working in a restaurant, but I think that I'm extremely blessed that I have the coworkers that I do, the support system that I do, and from my managers, and the fact that I am so brutally honest about who I am and like where I've come from and what I have to be today and what I can't do, that they just support with loving arms.
Do you think that maybe because you went through this prior and you actually learned what honesty and how to be honest, everything that it entailed?
Yes.
Do you think that this time after relapse that had an impact on you being honest with your...
100%. I think that there are people that don't have relapse a part of their stories, right? But I also think that there are people that do have relapse a part of their stories. And I think for me, when I relapsed, what I couldn't let go of was, oh God, I'm throwing away these 11 months that I just had sober. Yeah. And I'm going to have to restart it. I'm going to have to start over. But at the end of the day, it's not like I was restarting. I was taking all of those tools that I was taught. I was taking all of those skills that I learned and being able to reapply it and truly meaningfully apply it this time around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that sometimes relapse for me personally was the best thing that ever could have happened.
I would agree. So you have a lot of gratitude for that.
I do have a lot of gratitude for that.
Right, because now you have 16 months of sobriety.
16 and 3/4.
16 and 3/4. Okay, so now we get out of the detox.
Yeah.
Your job is completely cool with what you're doing.
Yeah.
They're supporting you.
Yes.
You have family and friends that are supporting you. Now you are going to enter another facility, right? I think you went to First Steps?
I went to First Steps outpatient. I went to their detox, and then I did their outpatient program for 4 months.
Yeah, First Steps is great.
I absolutely love them. I absolutely loved the counselor I had. She was an amazing woman. I loved many of the counselors there. The groups that I did there were extremely fulfilling. The people that I met there were amazing. I really I am grateful for First Steps Recovery, and I think that
Had a
they
huge
have
impact.
a really amazing program.
So you go to First Steps, you get out, and you are quickly reunited with your best friend that you were
Yes.
using with, and somebody that you met back at my time.
Yes.
Explain what that was like after you guys hated each other, after going through that what fentanyl did to both of you, how it made you guys turn on each other.
I think
Was there some forgiveness?
Yes, I think that Danielle and I's relationship has so many weird connections from the very beginning of ever being at my time, of
Right.
like her family being connected to my ex-boyfriend, and family, like,
And
friends
then you
being
guys becoming
connected,
best friends.
and then us becoming so close so quickly, and then relapsing together. But then while being in detox, Danielle had also relapsed on alcohol for a night.
Yeah.
And which, ironically, coincidentally, however,
all
God
part of
made
the
it.
plan.
God made it so that her and I share the same sobriety date because of that.
Yeah.
Without even knowing it at that time. And then I was paired up in detox with a girl who was the girl that relapsed with Danielle. So when I went
Right.
into detox, we were not speaking. And then in detox, all I kept hearing was like, I don't know where she is. I don't know what she's doing. And the only thing that kept coming into my brain was, is she okay? Is she okay?
Is she okay?
And so the second that I got out of detox, even though we hadn't spoken in 2.5 weeks, the first thing I did was Facebook message her and say, are you okay? And within 24 hours, we were back to exactly how we were 2.5 months prior to that.
Was that a weight lifted off of your shoulders?
Yes, 100%.
And what did do you just when you spoke to her over the phone for the first time? Did it just bring back smiles?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. So now you're reunited back with Danielle. You're out of First Steps, and now we are starting pretty much over. Our
Yeah.
recovery starts. Do you remember like what the first? I mean, what did you do first? Did you go to meetings? Did you start to connect
the
with others?
first
Did you
day
get back
that-
into community?
The first day that I got out, we went to a meeting right away. I got a sponsor that day.
Yeah.
And it was harder for me because at that time I was on Suboxone, and a lot of
Yeah.
sponsors in AA don't want to work with opiate addicts that are on Suboxones, and
Yeah. It is what
and
it is.
it is what it is. I found someone that day who was like, I'm a nurse. I understand what you're physically and mentally going through. You need to be on that, and I'm willing to work with you even though that's what's going on. And I said, awesome, great. So we started going to meetings all of the time, and then also going to outpatient, which then brought me closer to my community of people. I think that I had a community before my relapse, but I think today, present day, after my relapse, my community is like a tribe, like a very strong family.
Let's talk about some of this community. Let's talk about your recovery community. Just explain some of the things that you've learned from your recovery. I'm imagining accountability, responsibility, obviously, honesty.
Honesty.
What are some of the things that you can take away from it?
I would say, I think that what I've learned from this community is strength. I've seen so many people like with so many years of sobriety, and I don't think that people. The way I like to look at it is like when you're sober, you're just out there raw dog in reality, all those feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people get to have a glass of wine, or they get to like smoke weed or whatever. The fact is that life is hard, and you go through hard situations, hard things in life, and I've seen so many amazing people be able to stay sober through deaths of family members, through seeing people that they love pass away, through losing jobs. And it's just, if you can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your work community at the restaurant. Tell us what it was like to get back to work, how they embraced you, how they welcomed you back.
With open arms.
Yeah.
I'm also the type of person where I make humor out of my trauma. And I have no problem joking around about the fact that I'm an ex-junkie. Because I think that also because of that and being so open and honest, it's made a path for people from the industry to come to me and say, hey, I need help.
And have they?
Multiple
times.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it hard now to work in a restaurant? What would you say it's like now? Actually, let me take it back. Was it hard when you got back and they welcomed you back? Was it hard to be in an area where there's, partying till late at night?
I'm going to answer this based on myself.
Yeah.
Because I can't speak. I don't think maybe it's for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it is the best idea for everyone to do. I think that I've done it for so long. I've been in the restaurant industry for 15 years now, but also I reached a point in my active addiction that I don't ever want to go back to.
Right.
The desperation, the gift of desperation. I don't ever want to be where I was. So that alone has just made it not an option.
Yeah. And I would say both moments of the suffering from Santa Barbara County, the suffering there, and the suffering in that apartment, right?
Yeah.
I'd say that's too many times.
Yeah.
Do you have gratitude for both of those?
Yes.
And explain that. Why do you have gratitude for that?
I have gratitude for Santa Barbara County Jail. I have gratitude for the years of my addiction because I have gratitude for my relapse because I think that today, the way I live my life, the person that I am today, I think that I have a giant heart. I think I have seen and been through so much stuff in my life.
You wouldn't be where you're at today.
That I wouldn't even be the person I am today.
Right.
Without it.
So you're 6 months, you crushed it, and you got your chips. Let's move on to about a year now. You get 1 year. What was it like to finally now complete a year of sobriety?
Surreal.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Absolutely surreal.
What was it? Tell everyone about that surrealness.
I mean, I have been using drugs and alcohol since I was
forever
14.
Yeah.
I've been active. I was actively on hard drugs from the ages of probably 18 on. Mm-hmm. Heroin I started using at 25.
Because a year is probably the longest you've ever been at that point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started using heroin at 25. I got sober when I was 32, and when I relapsed, I was 33. Yeah. And I'm 35 now today. But basically, I'm saying that because I have never in all of those years had a year of sobriety.
Once you hit that year, what was the biggest accomplishment in that year, would you say?
Knowing that if I can get to a year, I can keep going.
That's right.
100, yes, that was absolutely it. However, when I got to that year, I also had this realization of I had my sponsor that I had moved to Oregon,
right.
And I had one of my good friends, Danielle's cousins. She's been in recovery for so long, and she knows so many people that through her I've been introduced to my sponsor present today, who is an amazing woman. Hi, Heidi. And I just love her. She's great. And she continues to work the steps with me. I'm on step 7 right now. And what the realization I had was that I wanted to be able to help somebody that was a female that has been through it, that's also, not even an addict, but also a heroin addict. There's not a lot of female recovering heroin addicts that are able to sponsor women today, at least in my experience.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to say that I've done the steps.
Very cool. And let's talk about your relationship with Heidi. How special is Heidi to you?
Heidi's very special to me. I'm also, I'm a special human in a sense where, I don't want to have somebody on my shoulder, telling me what to do and running my life 24/7. But Heidi just lets me be in a sense where she'll check in on me once a week or we've just developed a relationship today where I can call her. I called her 4 days ago to yap her ear off about little things that were getting to me and what was going on.
She's always picking up the phone.
And she texted me right before I was leaving to come here, okay, what time and day are we meeting next week? And I explained to her something that had happened, and she's like, okay, I want you to write a list about what your part is in this. And I'm like, oh, great.
So
not necessarily something you want to do, but it's great. I have
she holds you accountable.
She holds me accountable.
But at the same time, you trust her. But at the same time, you guys are great friends.
Yeah, I would say she's an amazing woman. And it's funny because, you know, they always tell you, like, find a sponsor that you look at that's somebody that you want what they have, you know? And I would say Heidi has done very well for herself in her sobriety, and she's definitely a woman that I look up to.
So at this point, you have a sponsor. You're working the steps. You said you're up to step 7. You go to meetings. What are some of the meetings that you enjoy now?
Today, presently, I love FA. I love 21 Pathways. I love HA still. CA when I can. I work weekends usually.
Do you go to AA meetings with your sponsor?
I have been to, actually, yeah, sometimes I've been more to NA events with her, actually.
Okay, cool.
We work the AA steps, but I've been to more like NA meetings and NA events with her.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
So you're still going to meetings. You're currently still working at the same restaurant.
Almost 2 years.
You and your best friend Danielle, you guys are. Tell us about that relationship. Are you guys are obviously still living under the same roof?
We live under
What
the
is your
same
friendship
roof.
now?
She's my sister. She's my ride or die.
Yeah.
She's the person that I know, you know, she might judge me for little things and tell me I'm special, but she loves me. It's an unconditional love.
This is a concert, right?
Yeah, we went
You
to
guys
a
went
rave.
to a
2
rave.
weeks
How
ago,
was
2.5.
and you went and saw what was that DJ you went to over at Chick-Shancy?
Oh, Steve Aoki.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you've been to a few concerts.
Yeah.
Tell us what it's like to go to a concert knowing that you can stay sober and that you and your best friend can go have a great time and not even be triggered by anything.
I love music. So music for me and my sobriety is, you know, I hyperfixate on songs and I will replay them over and over and over again. But I mean, Danielle and I went to a concert like 3 months clean and sober. There was a ton of drugs and a ton of partying and we were completely fine. Like, I think that we are very cool, fun people as it is, that we don't necessarily need to, like, you know, we don't even need it. We can have fun.
You can have fun.
And I think that's what some people get so scared about, is that you're going to be bored or you're boring and you can't go places and do certain things. And true, I do think that for the beginning of your sobriety and early sobriety, you know,
it goes through your heads, right?
You know, you should maybe like steer away of certain things that you might feel triggered by. But sobriety is not, it doesn't mean that your life is over. It's actually quite the opposite.
It's just beginning.
It's just beginning. You get to have so much fun. I get to go have amazing times with my best friend, my sister, who's also sober, and laugh, meet new people, have fun, and have a great time.
Have a great time.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? We can say that we can have a great time.
Yes.
Sober, right? Because in the past, it was never like that. So now, I would say you are living the life, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about moving forward here. Let's talk about, and we'll wrap it up. What are some of the things, what are 3 of the top things that you've learned in your sobriety that when talking to people who have less time than you, that you could share some of this knowledge with?
I would say resilience.
Resilience.
Strength. I would say accountability. Understanding.
Who holds you accountable today? Friends, family, all of the above. Yeah.
All of the above, definitely. I would say powerlessness, like understanding that there's not something wrong with you. Because when so many people, I feel like when they have to come to admit that they're an alcoholic or an addict, it's so hard for them to
ask for help
or understand that you're not broken.
Right.
You know, you're a human being just like anybody else. You just have to live a little differently.
It's kind of hard to swallow that pride, though, right?
100%, yeah.
That humility.
Yes, humility.
And just asking for help. Are there any other things that you want to share with people that maybe have less time than you that you could encourage them to do or say or be a part of?
I think that you should take any suggestion that is given to you. I know I definitely did not in the beginning. I think that you should find people that you relate to that are sober and want to be sober. I think that when you go into treatment centers, sometimes it's like a high school little fun little time. But if you truly look around you at the people around you, you can tell who really want to be there and who really want to stay sober. And I think those are the people that you need to make your tribe with. I think that community is so important. I think that you should, meetings are, I have my opinions on AA. I have my opinions on all sorts of recovery things related, but there are so many different meetings that you can go to that, just because you go to one and you didn't like it doesn't mean that they're all going to be like that. I think that there are so many different meetings, especially here in Fresno, that you can go to, try out, see which ones you like, keep coming back. And I think that I think that you should try to get a sponsor. I think you should try to work the steps. I think that, what's the worst that could happen? Because the worst that could happen for me was I already experienced the worst that could happen to me. So by getting a sponsor and working the steps and going to meetings like 21 Pathways and going to meetings like HA or CA or FA, and getting to experience a whole new beautiful life, why not?
Yeah, the whole third step prayer. Speaking of prayers real quick, the serenity prayer. You and I have had plenty of talks about how important the serenity prayer is and how it's had a huge impact in our life. Just explain that real quick, how important it is to you. Serenity, right? To have the peace of things that you can't control. What are some of those things?
The things I can't control, even though, I try to control a lot of things that are out of my control, how people view me, how other people's opinions of me, how all I can control is myself and how I respond to certain situations, how I react to certain situations, how I live my life, and how the walk that I walk today. Those are the things I can control.
And the things, just to change it up here, the things that you're most grateful for. Give me two things that you're the most grateful things in your life right now.
My sobriety and my friends, my family. And
I know you have a quote. Would you, it's beautiful. Would you mind reading that and just real quick explaining what you think it means? Or explaining what it means to you.
I don't like people who have never fallen or stumbled. Their virtue is lifeless and it isn't of much value. Life hasn't revealed its beauty to them. I think that is one of my favorite quotes because to me, I have fallen. I have stumbled. I have taken wrong paths, wrong courses in life. And because of those wrong turns, I've ended up to have one of the most beautiful, fulfilling lives today. It's not always easy. My life is not perfect. But I get to be sober in it. I get to experience it today. And that's something that I never got to do before. And for me, I'm glad that my God has had to show me the way through trials and tribulations.
Sometimes God sends us on a journey that we didn't think we needed, only to give us everything we ever wanted. Has recovery given you everything you ever wanted?
Yeah, so far, definitely.
Very cool. Well, is there anything else you'd like to end with? The moment's yours before we turn off the mics, and we're not going to do the serenity prayer. What is there anything else you want to leave out on the floor?
I would like to say, come check out 21 Pathways on Tuesdays at 6:30 at Bethany Church in the Student Center. And I love you guys.
3 ACs pumping.
3 ACs pumping. And Brian does puppet shows.
Yes. I love you.
I love you too.
Great job.